conservative activist Charlie Kirk, close ally of President Donald Trump and founder of Turning Point USA, was fatally shot at Utah Valley University during a campus event. Kirk was speaking at the event, part of his American Comeback Tour, when a single shot rang out, striking him in the neck. Despite security efforts, Kirk succumbed to his injuries and was pronounced dead. The FBI director said a person who was taken into custody on suspicion of involvement in Kirk's assassination has been released after interrogation. The shooting has drawn condemnation from both Republican and Democratic officials, including President Trump, who ordered U.S. flags to fly at half-staff in honor of Kirk. President Donald Trump condemned the heinous assassination of right-wing activist Charlie Kirk, hailing him as a man of deep faith. Trump also hit out at political divisions in the country that have fueled violence in the United States. He said that radical left political violence has hurt too many innocent people and taken too many lives. He asked Americans to commit themselves to the American values for which Charlie Kirk lived and died.
Who's been shot? I don't know if that was shots or if that was fireworks, to be honest, but...
A shooting at Evergreen High School in Colorado has left one person dead and two others critically wounded after a student opened fire on school grounds. The incident prompted a massive police response and school lockdown. The victims were rushed to St. Anthony Hospital in Lakewood, Colorado after the shooting. Authorities claim the shooter, a juvenile male student who used a revolver handgun, inflicted a self-inflicted gunshot wound and was also hospitalized. Authorities are investigating the motive, with the FBI and ADF providing support. U.S. President Donald Trump told Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in a tense phone call that striking Hamas leaders in Doha was unwise. And according to reports in Wall Street Journal, Netanyahu defended Israeli action, citing a brief window to launch the attack. In a follow-up call, Trump asked if the attack was successful, but Netanyahu said he didn't know the strike has sparked international condemnation, with Qatar hitting back at Netanyahu's comments. Israeli reservists who refused to serve in Gaza joined families of hostages in a protest march in Tel Aviv, demanding the captives' return and an end to the war. A mother of a hostage criticized Israel's recent strike on Doha, targeting Hamas leaders, saying it undermines efforts to secure the hostages' release. The protest highlights growing tensions and divisions within Israel over the ongoing conflict in Gaza. Hundreds of protesters gathered outside Chatham House in London to voice their opposition to Israeli President Isaac Herzog's visit, calling for his arrest over alleged war crimes in Gaza. Herzog met with UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer at Downing Street amid strained relations between the two countries. Protesters waving Palestinian flags and holding placards branding Herzog the genocide president criticized Starmer for hosting the Israeli leader. The global flotilla, a convoy of boats carrying international activists, is set to sail towards Gaza to challenge Israel's blockade of the enclave. Thousands of Tunisians gathered on Sedivo and said beach near Tunis to show their support for the flotilla, waving Palestinian flags and chanting slogans calling for freedom for Gaza. This comes after 2 drone attacks targeted key ships in the convoy over the past 2 nights, which organizers described as deliberate attempts by Israel to disrupt this mission. Federal agents have seized hundreds of thousands of illegal vaping products nationwide in a crackdown on products smuggled into the U.S. from China. The operation, led by the Trump administration, targeted distributors and retailers in multiple states, including Illinois, North Carolina, Arizona, New Jersey, Georgia, and Florida. Attorney General Pam Bondi and Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. traveled to Illinois to tout the seizures, which included more than 600,000 illegal products taken from a distributor outside of Chicago. New Orleans Mayor LaToya Cantrell made her first appearance in federal court to face conspiracy, fraud, and obstruction charges tied to what prosecutors have described as a years-long scheme to conceal a romantic relationship with her bodyguard as the two traveled while using taxpayer funds for their personal trips and outings. Cantrell pleaded not guilty to the 18-count indictment brought against her and Jeffrey Vapey in mid-August by a grand jury. A chartered Korean Air Boeing 747-8I arrived in Atlanta to repatriate hundreds of South Korean workers detained in an immigration raid at a Hyundai LG battery plant in Georgia. However, the repatriation process has been delayed due to a request from U.S. President Donald Trump. Trump reportedly asked whether the skilled South Korean professionals should remain in the U.S. to continue working and training American staff, prompting Washington to suspend the repatriation. The South Korean government has been working to secure the release of its nationals, with Foreign Minister Cho Hyun calling the mass detention a grave situation and pledging to ensure their swift return. The death toll from Nepal's youth-led anti-corruption protests has reportedly climbed to 30, with over 600 people injured, according to reports. The protests, sparked by a government ban on social media platforms, quickly escalated into a broader movement demanding accountability and transparency from the government, resulting in the resignation of Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli. Now, as political uncertainty continues, protesters publicly named former Supreme Court Chief Justice Sushila Karki as their preferred choice for interim prime minister. Cuba plunged into darkness due to nationwide blackout, which affected around 10 million people. The Ministry of Energy and Mines attributed the latest outage to the malfunctioning thermoelectric plant, with crews working to restore power. It was the second island-wide outage this year, with 3 other blackouts reported late last year. The country's aging infrastructure and fuel shortages have led to daily blackouts of up to 16 hours, with the government struggling to meet electricity demand due to dwindling fuel imports and lack of maintenance for its outdated power plants. A devastating gas tanker explosion ripped through a highway in southeast Mexico City, killing at least 3 people while leaving around 70 people with burn injuries. The incident occurred when a tanker overturned and exploded near the border between Iztapalapa municipality and Chalco. Emergency services quickly responded to the scene and firefighters worked to extinguish the flames that engulfed several vehicles. Calling the explosion an emergency, Mayor Clara Brugada has said that authorities are investigating the cause of the accident. The highway, a major thoroughfare to Puebla, has been closed until further notice. The Mexican Navy has seized approximately 1,600 kilograms of cocaine worth around $19.91 billion in maritime operation off the coast of Guerrero. The drug seizure was made during surveillance operations aimed at maintaining law and order in Mexican maritime zones. Brazilian Supreme Court Justice Luiz Fux voted to acquit former President Jair Bolsonaro of alleged coup attempts charges, diverging from his peers and potentially impacting the trial's outcome. Despite Fux's vote, the High Court still seems likely to convict Bolsonaro of plotting a coup to remain in power after losing the 2022 election to President Lula da Silva. 2 judges have already voted to convict, while the remaining 2 judges appointed by Lula are yet to cast their votes. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will hold bilateral talks with his Mauritian counterpart in his parliamentary constituency of Varanasi today. Ramgoolam is on a state visit to India from September 9th to 16th, and during the bilateral discussions, the two leaders are expected to review the entire spectrum of cooperation, with particular emphasis on development partnership and capacity building. According to reports, the meeting will highlight the civilizational connect, spiritual linkage, and enduring people-to-people bonds that have long defined the special relationship between India and Mauritius. Chinese Vice Premier He Lifeng and UK Secretary of State for Business and Trade Peter Kyle meet in Beijing to discuss economic and trade cooperation between the 2 countries. He Lifeng emphasized China's commitment to high-standard opening up and encouraged British businesses to maintain confidence in investing in China, while Kyle expressed the UK's willingness to deepen trade and investment relations with China, highlighting the importance of economic cooperation between the 2 nations. Wall Street climbed to fresh records Wednesday, with the S&P 500 up 0.3% to 6,532, and the Nasdaq notching a 3rd straight high, fueled by cooler U.S. producer prices and growing bets on a Fed rate cut next week. Oracle surged 36% on strong AI cloud demand, adding $240 billion to its value, now closing in on Tesla. AI and chip stocks rallied, with Nvidia, Broadcom, and AMD all gaining in Asia. Thursday markets traded mixed. Japan inched higher, South Korea hit a new peak, but Australia slipped. Investors now turn to U.S. consumer price data for fresh clues on the Fed's next move. The U.S. dollar stabilized in early Asian trade, with the dollar index ticking up for a 3rd straight session to 97,822 after a surprise drop in U.S. producer prices boosted bets on a Fed rate cut next week. Traders now see a 25 basis point cut as a done deal, with some chance of a bigger 50-point move Against the yen, the dollar traded flat at 147.41 after Japan's wholesale prices rose 2.7% year-on-year. The euro edged higher to $1.1698 ahead of the ECB meeting, where policymakers are expected to hold rates, but may strike a dovish tone amid growing regional tensions. The Aussie held gains near 10 months high, while the yuan and kiwi moved little. Gold held steady just below record highs Thursday, trading around $3,645 an ounce, about $30 off its all-time peak hit earlier this week. As a price drop in U.S. producer prices strengthened traders' conviction, and the Fed will cut rates next week, with a quarter-point move now seen as a lock. Bullion has surged nearly 40% in 2025, powered by central bank buying. Geopolitical tensions and concerns over U.S. tariffs, investors continue to pour into gold tracking ETFs, seeking haven as political pressure mounts on the Fed. Silver traded above $41 after a 42% rally this year, while platinum was flat and palladium edged higher. In industry moves, Barrick Mining sold its last Canadian mine to Carcetti Capital for about $1.1 billion. Oil prices held steady after a three-day rally, with Brent above $67 and the U.S. oil near $64 a barrel. This comes after President Donald Trump questioned Russia's airspace violation of Poland, prompting a brief spike in futures as traders covered shorts. Trump also warned of new tariffs on India and China, key buyers of Russian oil, if European nations join him in pressuring Moscow. The EU responded sharply, calling Russia's move reckless and vowing to ramp up sanctions. Volatility may rise, but supply pressures remain in focus, with U.S. crude stocks up 3.9 million barrels last week, and global markets still facing a potential glut by year-end. Meta and TikTok have won a legal challenge against the European Commission over a supervisory fee under the Digital Services Act. Luxembourg-based General Court ruled the EU regulators used a flawed methodology to calculate the 0.05% fee on companies' global net income. The court said the fee should have been set through a delegated act, not an implementing decision. The Commission now has 12 months to fix its rules, but will not refund your 2023 fees. Santiago, Chile has conducted its first surgery with an autonomous AI-guided camera. Chief Surgeon Ricardo Fink at a Santiago clinic used the system during a laparoscopic gallbladder removal. The procedure combined magnetic surgical instruments with software that automatically tracked surgical tools and adjusted camera angles without human assistance.